the only ones in class. A court had just ordered the city of Boston to desegregate its public schools. The court said Boston had to begin busing white kids to black schools and black kids to white schools in order to force the schools to integrate. Lots of families from white neighborhoods in Boston balked at the idea of sending their kids in traditionally black neighborhoods, public schools, especially having Boston had to begin busing white kids to black. So that's how young Valerie Banks ended up in the charter schools to integrate. Lots of families from white neighborhoods in Boston balked at the idea of sending their kids in traditionally black neighborhoods, public schools, especially having Boston.
We're getting organized for the event. We're glad that you're here, and we will be working soon once we get our speakers added.
White neighborhoods in Boston balked at the idea of sending their kids in traditionally black neighborhoods, public schools, especially having Boston.
We're getting organized for the event. We're glad that you're here, and we will be working soon. Hello, Reverend Shonda.
Hey, Will, how's it going?
I'm well. You?
Doing all right, thanks.
Great. Thanks for reaching out to Patricia.
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 Yeah, I thought I would
That's
mention that because you get to
that's
introduce
her
her.
correct pronunciation.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Yeah, I've done some uh I've held some pub community spaces with her before, and she just brings a really spiritually grounded energy. So I'm really glad that you all are getting to meet.
Nice. Yeah, me too. And we confirmed Karina for another program
Good.
in later in April,
Good.
further away from the previous date that we had set. So she'll still be able to share with our folks, and we're looking forward to that.
That's great. Well, I'll go ahead and turn off my sound until we get the rest of the
Yeah, your sound is good.
good.
Good sound check, and we'll get the other folks. Let me just text Lev. Reverend Shonda, could you text me Patricia's number where I might be able to
Absolutely.
just text her? Thank you. Good evening. We're waiting for some of our speakers, and we'll be starting hopefully promptly at 7 o'clock. So if you want to just hang out for a little while, that's great.
Food all over his face. Those are perfect.
Welcome, Brother Lev. Good to see you.
Hello, nice to hear you, Brother Will.
How's today?
Good, good.
Good.
Nice
There's
to be here.
Patricia.
Oh, sorry, I'm late.
No worries, we're good. You're just doing great. Just wanted to get a sound check before we get started.
Cool.
I think I can hear you pretty well.
Yeah, I have really bad Wi-Fi, so I have to just do it on my phone.
Okay. That's okay. We're going to get started right at 7.
Okay.
And I just wanted to say hi, Lev. Hey, Patricia.
Hola, sister.
How are you? Oh, look, there's other friends in the room.
All sorts of friends.
All such are friends. Laura and Leanne.
And Shirley. Jessica's here from the JCRC. Bill Cunningham. A few friends from First Christian Church. How are you? Good to see you.
Okay. How come I can't see you?
Glad you're well.
There we go.
All right. They're all coming in right now. Maybe we'll get started about 3 minutes, 2 or 3 minutes after. Welcome, everyone. We encourage you to mute yourself. We will have some questions and answers a little later where we'll invite you to be able to ask some of those questions or put them in the chat room. But for the first hour, it's going to be more like a webinar, and our 3 speakers are going to be sharing the screen and conversing with one another. And so we invite you to get comfortable, grab something to eat or drink, and we will get started in just a few minutes. Hello, Reverend Christy.
Hello, Reverend Will.
How are you today?
Good, good. Really looking forward to this.
Yeah.
Thank you
so
for orchestrating it. Yeah.
I'm just amazed that we were able to get all 3 of these gifted people in the same room at the same time. And
yeah.
And we're praying for Karina tonight because she had a loss in her family. She lost her brother this week. And so we're praying for her, and we're so grateful for Patricia being here with us tonight. And we will get to hear from Karina Gould with the Sogoriate Land Trust April 29th. And the other announcement I'll just make while we're waiting here, and I'll put it in the chat room for you all, is that we are doing a prayer vigil with the AAPI community tomorrow at noon on the lunch hour. And it'll be a Zoom meeting like this. And we will be able to share prayers and our, not just thoughts and prayers, but even share some of the actions that we want to take to make sure that this is a place that's safe for all people.
I have a question. What does AAPI stand for, please?
Asian American Pacific Islander. Hope that's helpful. Folks are still joining our room. Welcome. We're going to get started in just a couple minutes. So go ahead and get comfortable and mute yourself, and the first hour or so will be more like a webinar as we hear our presenters, and then we'll be opening it up for conversation. So if you're in a place where there's not very good bandwidth and you want to turn your camera off, that's acceptable too.
Toward the end of school, perhaps it was due to her emotional training, Alice's concentration suffered. She became distracted and neglected.
Bill Cunningham, good to see you.
You too, Bob. Is everything
Bob.
all right? Everything all right with you?
Good evening to all.
Good evening.
Good evening.
All right, we're going to mute everybody. You'll be able to unmute yourself a little later, but for now we're going to mute everybody, and if you want to save your bandwidth, you can turn your camera off if you'd like. Good evening. It's Wednesday, March 24th, and we are together to be able to share this special program on transforming trauma and building the beloved community. We're, again, so grateful that you're here. The Interfaith Council of Contra Costa County is 109 congregations, monasteries, and retreat centers that do a lot of peacemaking and peace building work, as well as our interfaith dialogues on a regular basis. And we are so excited tonight to have a great panel with Patricia Contreras Flores, an Indigenous healer, storyteller, and writer, Reverend Shonda Jha, who does a lot of anti-racism training and leadership at the Oakland Peace Center, and Fresh Lev White, who's no stranger to us and has been helping us with a lot of our anti-racism trainings for the last few months. And one of my dreams was to have a panel such as this tonight to be able to share in this. We had previously scheduled Karina Gould from the Sogoriate Land Trust, and she had a loss in her family this week. So our prayers go out to her. Continue to pray for Karina. We will be able to hear a presentation from Karina on April 29th. On the California Indigenous Genocide. And another reminder that tomorrow we have a prayer vigil with the Asian American Pacific Islander community. We'll have different clergy and religious leaders from around the county. And if you go to our events page, the link is there at the bottom, but it's also in the chat room. You can go to our events page at interfaithccc.org. And when you hit that event page, it comes up with the current month. And there's a link there for tomorrow during the lunch hour as we gather. So we are coming together tonight as the faith community, and we want to spotlight our speakers tonight. And that means that I might have to go on the hunt. Once you get one in there, it's easier. And here's Reverend Shonda. There's Patricia. We're going to add you there. Let me find Lev. There he is. And tonight, we really want to be able to lift up how do we transform trauma in our lives? And that might be racially based, it might be um, based on other aspects of our lives or identities that we have, because there's no such thing as single identity issue people. As Audre Lorde said, we are all intersectional. And she really was teaching intersectionality before the term was even used. So we want to thank all three of our speakers tonight, Reverend Shonda, Patricia, and Lev, and we are so grateful for you sharing your wisdom with us tonight. Take it away.
And I think, Patricia, we're starting with you because you're going to be giving us a land acknowledgement.
Hi. Good evening, everyone. I live in the heart of the Fruitvale, and there's a lot of noise that happens here, so just bear with me. So I want everyone to just take a moment to take some breaths, wherever you're at, how get as comfortable as you possibly can within your own being, right? And I'm calling you from Ohlone territory, Chochenyo territory, this part of this unceded land is called Wichin by the Ohlone people. And as most of us are aware, Indigenous people to these lands here at Turtle Island continue to exist, and they continue to fight to protect their lands. And I think it's really important that we remember that we all come from, we're Indigenous to somewhere, right? And I think it's really important that we remember that unless you're Ohlone and on this call, like, we are settlers, we are visitors, hopefully conscious settlers, right? But at the end of the day, these are not our lands, and it's beautiful here, right? And so I think right now I just want to send a really special prayer out to Karina, who some of you know, and if you don't know her, you know of her work, because she's continued the fight that her ancestors started. And right now her brother passed away. And so I want to just spend a few seconds just in prayer out to her and to her family and her loved ones. Creator, we are here as humble people on these beautiful lands of the Ohlone people here in Wichin, asking for some more love, some more light, and some more ease, specifically for our sister Karina and her family and her beloved brother that joined the spirit world a few days ago. May he shine brightly as part of the Star Nation, and on behalf of me and my ancestors, and hopefully they are welcoming him, including my dad, who just joined the spirit world not too long ago as well. Hopefully he's also welcoming into the Star Nation. We ask this on behalf of on behalf of being humble and simple people who want to do better on this land, on behalf of the human and non-human people. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. So friends, just wanted to let you know that for the next hour or so, you're going to be eavesdropping on a conversation among three friends and friends to be. We will definitely be, like Will mentioned earlier, we'll be taking some questions later from from all of you who are taking the time to be here. But for now, we don't get a lot of chances to talk to each other, just us. So we're going to take advantage of the opportunity to do that and let you eavesdrop for the next hour or so. Thanks for bearing with that particular model of conversation. So my name is Shonda Jha. I've been with this group on a number of occasions to do work around housing justice and around racial justice and economic justice. And so it was easy to say yes to this invitation. So before we plunge into the conversation, maybe Lev and Patricia, do you mind introducing yourselves before we move into the fishbowl and pretend nobody else is here?
Sure. Hi, my name is Lev, and some of you know me as Fresh as well. He, they, and I'm also on unceded Ohlone and Chochenyo territory here by Lake Merritt, Oakland. Yeah, my background is in working to create great communication, great respect between communities. I've done that work through supporting those in need of employment, some housing, working with people around housing, and as a trans and LGBTQIA plus ally trainer. We can keep it that. I'm also, I teach meditation I'm at the East Bay Meditation Center, Spirit Rock, and other places.
Awesome.
Glad to be here. Patricia.
Hi, can folks hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I just put my headphones on. Maybe that'll get rid of the noise. Hi, Patricia Contreras Flores, she, they. I am Purépecha from Michoacán, Mexico. I've been in the Bay since I was 8 months old. I consider myself a community worker in general, done a lot of youth work. I do a lot of immigration work, and I do a lot of food program work right now. I consider myself a very spiritual person who, the whole point of me being here right now is to remind people of how beautiful and magical these lands are that we are upon, and it's even more beautiful and amazing because of all of our non-human relatives. And my point is to remind people that we are love and that we are power, and the more we connect to ourselves and the land, the more healing that we will have. And so I am here because I am been working to heal myself since birth, so that I can heal my ancestors and so that I can heal the next 7 generations that are going to come after me. I am an answer to a prayer that my ancestors put out many, many moons ago, ancestors whose names I don't know, yet I am eternally grateful for. So that's me. Glad to be here. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you so much. And just so you know, Patricia, sometimes we're only getting a corner of your face. I think you look gorgeous, so I want to make sure you're right there in the middle. That's perfect. Thank you. So we had decided to hone in on just a few questions because this subject of transforming trauma and building beloved community is so big and can go so many different directions that we had chosen a few questions to ground us in the conversation. And we thought it would be fun to ask each other the questions. So I get to ask the first question. I promise I'll answer it at the end. But the first question, we started out saying that the question was going to be, what forms of trauma do you experience from your cultural background? And as we were discussing the question, we were like, yeah, but I think it was Karina who was like, I think the question should be, which forms of trauma don't you experience? Because there's so much. So the question is more along the lines of, what's happening for you in your community right now? And I know there's a lot of answers to that, but It's a question we wanted to start ourselves off with. So I don't know, Lev or Patricia, which of you was brave enough to plunge into that one first? Patricia's staring down Lev.
Would you prefer if I went first? Yes, it's an interesting question for me because it's been something that I've been exploring in a more explicit way for myself since the execution of George Floyd. It woke me up in a whole different way of looking at how I've spent a lot of my life shrinking so that everybody felt safe around me. And so, yeah, what forms of trauma, to say discrimination is too vague. So the idea that people are afraid of me is really traumatic because I'm really loving. And in fact, when I was a youth, some of the ways I worked out those particular traumas was I was a bully's bully. And I brought that even here. So there are a couple of women in San Francisco go, I remember you. You helped me when this guy did blah, blah, blah. So, that's more of what I did. So the idea, I've also transitioned to a more masculine appearing body. And so women being afraid of me is painful. It showed up before just being big black butch, and now it's painful. I noticed that even some of us black guys are trained to be afraid of each other. That's really painful. There are times I know in a whole new way that when I leave my house, I might not come back. And it's something that I consider every time. I, mistaken identity or whatever it might be, get pulled over. And, when I've been pulled over, it's been for water. And like, I remember on my way after parking downtown San Francisco, somebody knocked my bumper off and having a cop pull me over because my bumper was hanging off, and just like other random things. So I think one of the traumas that I live with is just knowing that any day could be my last, but not because I do believe that life will decide what that end is going to be, and it might be that I get shot by the police, and then people have each death is teaches some of us something about who we are. So that might be the way I go, and it feels and it's devastating. And I'll just add one more thing because I know we have more questions. What's happening for my community right now, and my community is a rainbow of people. I am proud to say that I grew up in that kind of community in the Bronx, and that it was like that in DC, which is really rare, and then it's also like that here. So what's happening in my community is embracing our Asian and API folks for with what's happening. So what's happening in my community is last week showing up at Shell Mound, where Karina spoke with my friend, who's also part of my family, so also Jewish community, where we're working on dismantling racism at our synagogue. So, and again, embracing. So what's happening in my community is both healing people working to heal themselves, and people working to break out of our colonized mind that continues to encourage that we're different, or I'm sorry, continues to insist that we're different, right? That we're separate, but we are not.
Lev, thank you so much. That's a lot to have to carry.
Thank you.
Patricia, how about you, sis?
I was trying to burn a little medicine as you were speaking, so I will
Thank you.
stop jumping around here. Well, I think for me, I was thinking about there's a perception of who I am mostly within the different communities. I am perceived as, and I've seen it in the look that because of the way I dress and the 2 braids that I'm usually rocking, this notion of what Indigenous is and what it represents. And it's not usually something positive. And it's something that is really painful. And I know it's something that my ancestors have had to deal with. And it's something that I have to work through even within my own family. Relatives asking why I dress the way that I do, why I wear the jewelry that I do. And so it's really crappy to be othered when what I'm representing is something that has been so deeply, deeply healing and validating for me. The older I've gotten, the more I have connected to just my roots. And it has provided so much love and everything. It's transformed me into the person that I am. And so I think for me, the other thing that I feel like I've been struggling with, or that comes up for me in general when I think about trauma, is this possessiveness to the quote unquote female cis body, right? The violence that continues to happen. And my dad just passed away almost 5 weeks ago now, and my dad was violent towards my mom. And as I've walked that path of forgiveness, it's something that has just been continual, in my family. And I went to visit an aunt this weekend, and her husband passed away not that long ago. Yet her son still is really possessive of her. And so the way that manifests in my family, and I know that in other families, it definitely does too. And so it's hard to be in a neighborhood that when I first moved here felt pretty good, and it has gotten perpetually a little bit scarier to be in, where I don't want to be here at night. Been hearing like semi-automatic rifles, on the regular. And so it's the transformation that is happening here is there was struggle and suffering before, and now it's extremely, extremely, extremely horrific to see what has happened. We see over 100 people in our food line on Tuesdays every week. And when we tell people we don't actually have diapers for you this week, there is a lot of pain and desperation that is something that we have to, just work through. Those of us that are privileged. I get to come home. I have an apartment, I have a job, I have a vehicle, I can travel if I want to. And so part of the immigration work that I do, I actually got a call just as I was coming off my shift. I'm a little bit before 4 o'clock today. And someone called, and someone from San Diego actually, and somebody had been taken and was in custody, and San Diego's right by that horrible border. Well, one of the many horrible borders, I should say. And I was texting my colleagues, and I was like, those calls are never, ever easier to listen to someone. And it turned out to be this person's partner that was taken. And the person was grieving the loss of a parent and got wrapped up in some stuff and is now potentially going to get deported, and what all that means. And so I think for me, I think the biggest trauma that I feel like me and my community, and I can't speak for my community, are going through is this, as all these seasons of unraveling, because that's what I'm calling it, the unraveling, the great unraveling, just seeing all these folks that are really wanting to continue to keep like settler capitalist colonialism in place, and this whole going back to some normal, like it was a good thing, what it was like before. And so I think for me, that's been a little traumatizing, because the amount of suffering that I have seen tells a really different story. And it does need to transform. And I've seen some beautiful transformation happen. And it's just the beginning, though. There's just so much, there's so many layers to it. And so I think for me, that's been the biggest thing, is just reminding people, reminding folks, and reminding myself every day of the light and the hope. And so I think today was overall good. And even with that phone call, just, telling folks, like in Spanish, we don't say I'm sorry, we say lo siento, and lo siento means I feel you. And there's something really different that resonates with folks. And when people told me that, or tell me that, lo siento, it's just telling folks like lo siento. And, as somebody who also has a brother that's in a detention center, it doesn't feel good to have someone to be separated from your loved ones in that way. And so I guess, yeah, hopefully that all made sense.
Thanks, friend. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot, which is why Karina was like, so what traumas aren't you facing? Because they all go together. I mean, they're all overlapping with each other. So I really appreciate you both sharing. I promised I would answer this. I'm going to start with kind of a silly thing that's just been, it's not a trauma, it's just an annoyance, but it connects, I think, to a trauma, if you'll bear with me for a minute. So I do a lot of anti-oppression work, and I work with a lot of communities. I mean, tech companies, nonprofits, universities, churches. And some of the anti-oppression work I have plugged in is for people to tell their own stories. Because when we know who we're from, we can show up for each other in a different way. And I just found out that a congregation that was using my curriculum, and I wasn't with them when they used it, staged a coup. Half of them refused to do the exercise where they told their own stories, because they were like, we are here for racial justice. We do not understand why you're wasting our time with this foolishness. We are trying to do things. And so I'm laughing about it a little bit, but whew, the thing that makes me a little sad about it is it clarified for me that the folks who were showing up who didn't have a lived experience of experiencing racism were like, oh yeah, we're here to help you people. They didn't know that was what they were saying. They didn't mean to be malicious, but the sense that they had anything of themselves to work on or bring was completely absent. And I think part of why it makes me sad is so this has been a hard week for Asian Americans, Asian American women, wage working women of color, because of what happened last Tuesday. And as my API sisters check in on each other, a lot of us are saying, whew, this is taking me back to my experience as a nail tech, my experience as a massage therapist, my experience in the working world where my body was always commodified on a daily basis, where I was dehumanized, otherized, orientalized. So it's bringing up a lot of this life trauma. And I'm only beginning to connect with how I carry in my body the traumas of my father, who lived through the independence of India, which is the great part of the story, but lived through partition, was a 10-year-old on the roof of his school because it was the only building in his village that had a roof of the kind you could sit on, with a gun to protect the village during partition, when millions of people died. And like, I always knew that was history, but to come up against the fact that that's in my DNA, even though I didn't live through it myself. And that's probably, I mean, I know that's familiar to both of you, and that there's that reality that we carry our lived traumas and we carry our ancestral traumas. And I think that's why that story about those church folks who were like, but we are here to fix racism, why are you making us tell our stories, is because, whew, we all got that stuff in our DNA. And the fact that some folks aren't doing that work means we're gonna keep re-traumatizing each other. So that's been sitting on my heart a lot this week. That it's been so, well, we'll get into the what are the good things, but it's been really amazing to watch people show up and check in. To have people I love be like, this has got to be rough, are you all right? Or better yet, sending me DoorDash gift cards because they're like, you should not have to think about food, we're just taking care of that for you this week. Stuff like, you know, just the ways people are showing up has been really, really moving. And I think one of the things that's not necessarily a trauma, but is a heartbreak is, gosh darn it, why do we only show up for each other in the moments of trauma like this? Because I'm looking at both y'all, and Patricia, we've been family for a long time. Lev, I'm claiming you as family. I want us to show up not just when someone gets killed. And I'm trying to figure out how we keep doing that better. So that's what's on my heart right now. I think Lev gets to ask the next question.
Thank you, and thank you so much for your share. I just want to just offer that, yes, we can do that. We can. It's just knowing that it's going to happen in different ways. We can show up for each other. And some of what colonization and capitalism teaches us is that there's not enough. So that there's not enough time, there's not enough space, I don't have this, I don't have that. And the truth is, you can look particularly at people of color and see the expansiveness of what enoughness can look like, what it's like for our, you know, our Black community to hold our Asian community, to hold our Native community, for our Native community to hold all of us, right? For a Jewish community to hold us, and the different ways Christians show up. Just like we can do it, we just have to want to do it. We can show up for each other, we can make space, but we have to want to. Patricia, I just want to echo that definitely since COVID, my building was broken into twice last week. There have been 3 people murdered in my neighborhood over the last 3 weeks, including, unfortunately, the Asian man who was knocked over. And so this idea of normal was never normal, as the artist whose name I can't recall this moment said. So being really careful about what we're asking for, because what we're asking for is for people of color to get quiet again, because we're here because we were trained to do that. I was sharing with someone about how, again, after George Floyd, I could let off this idea that I can no longer say that I'm harmed. And part of that, I'm really fortunate because I actually have a small business that I'm running that is sustaining me at this time, but I couldn't do that at work. Those microaggressions, you just eat them. You eat them, you wear them, you take them with you. Like, you just can't do that. And so I just want to, honor my privilege in that. And so the question is, how are you not angry all of the time? And I'm not sure about the second part. Here's the gift my left. Recognizing how the trauma transforms us. How are you not angry all of the time? And why do you still bother? Why do you still continue to do the work?
Patricia, do you want to start or do you want me to go?
You were last time. You go first this time.
So, it's interesting because I think in the API community, a lot of us have gotten trained into don't be angry as a survival technique. I was reflecting recently, I don't think I heard my father talk about having experienced racism until he was in his late 70s. And in fact, there were a lot of things that when I was younger, I pointed out as racism, and he's like, because that's how he got through the day. It's how he got through the microaggressions. And so I think there's a little bit of me that's like, I'm trying to help my folks get angrier. And at the same time, I think one of the things that has been really energizing for me over the past 10 years is learning a lot of histories I didn't get to learn when I was younger about all of these moments throughout our history as Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders in this country, where we were in solidarity with Indigenous people, where we were in solidarity with Black folks, where we were actually organizing collaborative movements. And I'm like, who kept this from me? So admittedly, I was still a little angry as I learned those things, but man, this notion that we're just figuring out how to do this for the first time, it's a lie. And so in many ways, learning more about the history, even though there's a lot to be mad about, learning about our history has been giving me a lot of energy to know that there were Black Bangladeshi mixed communities in Harlem in the early 1900s, knowing that Punjabi farmers and indigenous Mexican and indigenous Californian folks were intermarrying and running farms that still exist today, that we showed up for each other's movements, that there were Black folks who were helping to fund the Indian independence movement and the Dalit rights movement, that stuff is giving me all sorts of energy. And I'm like, yeah, there's a reason they've kept those stories from us. Whoever they is, that's a very abstract way of putting it, but there's a reason we haven't been told those stories. But whoa, once we have those stories, we're like, oh, I'm not the first person to come up with this. This is a thing. We show up for each other. And that's actually helping me feel really aligned with my ancestors in a different way. So that's one of the things that I'm really getting energy from in the midst of the real heartbreak over and over of this past year and of this lifetime. How do you stay not mad, Patricia? And I know you stay mad.
Oh, wow. So as I like to tell people, I was a rageful machine from the age of 13 until 26, like literally wanted to inflict harm on many, many people, many people. And when I started going to ceremony, things started to shift for me. I found a home. When the very first sweat lodge that I went to here in Oakland, my teacher said, welcome home. And there's a lot of stuff, there's a lot to that. The sweat lodge is supposed to be our womb, the womb of our Mother Earth. And so I realized also that I was angry for so long during those formidable years as well, because of all the violence that my ancestors went through. I was angry for, my grandmother that was stolen, because that was a thing. And we know it's still a thing. Some person sees someone, hey, they're pretty, I'm going to just take them. And, I'm going to kill her brother. And that's okay. And she never saw her family again. And so, as I started unraveling, and as a child, I listened to stories that my mom always told me. And I would be like, ooh, that's not a good story. There's nothing romantic about that. And so how I came to be is through a lot of violence. And so I've worked very, very, very hard to not be angry at cis males. Very, very, and really started to unpackage, what had happened and how damaging toxic masculinity is for everybody, for everyone involved. And so me and anger are really good homies. And it doesn't take very much for me to get upset. And yet, similar to you, Shonda, I think for me, it's been extremely crucial to know other people's stories. I grew up in an extremely diverse neighborhood. And it was interesting because somebody was saying something about Filipinos, and I was like, oh, I grew up with them. And somebody else who grew up in Southern California, we were just sharing that, like the importance of, just knowing different people. And I remember when I started working in schools, these cute kids, I was like, ooh, Arab is really pretty. And I'm like, where are you from? You're from Yemen. Where is Yemen? I do not know where that's at. And so like looking up things, on a globe, correcting my mom when she calls everyone chinos. And I'm like, how do you know they're Chinese? Did you ask them? Are they Chinese? And so like showing her on a map, like what is Asia, right? What it is and how diverse that, that whole land is, and all the peoples and everything. And so I've tried to channel my anger, because as I've gotten older, I didn't channel it during those very heavily rageful years. And so I think for me, I try to use it now to learn and unlearn, and mostly just to remember the importance of having each other's back in very deep and meaningful ways. And like you said, not just when it's really bad, it's important to keep cultivating that love and that trust. And the other part of the question was, why do you still bother? I think for me, like, as I was at this meeting a long time ago, and there was a community member that was like, "Oh, it's too hard," and this and that. And when a very beautiful Guerrera warrior friend that Shonda knows, her name is Nehanda Imara, she was like, "Sister, we survived slavery. And my people didn't necessarily survive slavery, but my people survived, genocide," which obviously, yes, and so I think for me, I owe it to my ancestors to continue, because they were under much more horrific circumstances. And I'm just speaking for myself, obviously. And yes, the genocide continues, obviously, because it just is, right? Because we're still here, and we're not all in yurts, just chilling. We're on computers because we can't be around each other because of this this thing called the pandemic that has been created by us, the human people. And so I think for me, I continue to breathe because I am an answer to a prayer. And so I must continue to do the work, because that's why I was put here. Like, I feel this, even in my darkest, most, and when I go to that place, that's what I think about. And even, my dad died from Alzheimer's. And so, like, that's actually what scares me the most, is all these stories that I know that I carry, and that I've learned from, the importance of continuing that. And so I think that's when I feel really, really down, I crawl out, thinking about all the hope that does actually very much exist. And my ancestor usually crawls and digs me out if I'm really deep. And I think prayer, probably everyone on this call, right? The importance of prayer. And it's just like this little itty bitty, like, whisper that you can barely feel in your toe. And then it just keeps going up, up, up. And then it fills you up. And I think for me, that's why I bother, because it matters, because we matter.
Thank you. You've got a note, Patricia. Thank you for that beautiful approach to life. I continue to breathe because I know, I can't see the whole thing, but you've got a note in the chat for later. Yeah, so much. You each brought so much. And I just want to go back and say that, Sandhya, I claim you back. So thank you for that. I think about, one of the most recent things that happened to me, that is, in January, I got my birth certificate for the first time. So I had to wait 58 years to find out who my people were. So there's a little bit of anger around that. I can be with this idea that I wasn't supposed to know them. I can be with, I understand that spiritual level, but on a human experience, on a more social construct experience, there's a little anger around not having access to that. When I was young, my mom, if anybody, you definitely want to see the Dr. Susan Moore video on YouTube if you haven't seen it already. My mom was misdiagnosed with diabetes for about 3 years, and then found out she had brain cancer, like, within the last 8 months. And then I found out that my birth sister who I'm just learned about through a friend, was misdiagnosed and had 4 months of pancreatic cancer. Had 4 months left. It turns out she actually died of a heart attack, which would have been something for me to know in how I live my life. And then there's the anger of like my frustration. Patricia started out saying that she is love, and that's who I am. That's my mantra. That's true about all of us. When people ask me things like, "Have you found Jesus?" I say, "Yes, I'm looking at him," right? Because I see that in all of us. And then my dad was an alcoholic, and so I couldn't get through to him. And so what I learned is that my anger didn't matter. And taking that from the 11-year-old to the just recently in my last job, being written up for being assertive after having people in my face screaming, white people in my face screaming, and when I come back in an assertive tone of this is how things are supposed to be, getting written up. So there's that way that we're, like I said, things haven't changed. Things have changed. I'm not going to say things haven't changed. I'm in all the changes. I know that we wouldn't all be here if things hadn't changed. And there's some beautiful things. And what I've been talking about over the last year as I teach meditation is that it's also important for us to find the lotus, which grows out of the mud, right? So I'm really good at that. That's what I do. And at the same time, knowing that I'm hunched over is part of the work that I have to do so that I take up space, know that I'm still challenged to take up space. And I'm not angry all the time. And part of that is because something in me is joyful. And one of the things that I finally found the best friend of my birth sister who wrote about my mother that she was hella funny and that they both had a great laugh. And so being able to I'm like, oh, it's not just me, right? I am an optimist. So I'm not angry all the time, also because of my mindfulness practice. The truth is that this is where we are. This is what's happening. I can be in anger. I think anger is important. I definitely think that it's its own cleanser. It's just not where I live, so I can't be angry all the time. And I understand why people are. So when I was growing up, I was taught to smile, 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 smile. So there's that part of it. Anger I wasn't, I get to watch mostly white kids, toddlers, throw themselves all over the store. I got hit for that, right? Definitely not good. And there wasn't an outlet. There wasn't a way for me to express anger. We have the saying also in Buddhism, some of you may have heard, like, when I'm holding anger, it's almost like throwing a hot coal at someone, right? It sticks to your damn hand. So in my practice over these last few years, and particularly both of my adoptive parents have died and my siblings are queer phobic and just really in lots of trauma, being able to practice compassion has helped me so much so that I can understand. And also, I just want to name Don Miguel Ruiz, knowing that what's coming at me is not personal, knowing that what's happening for me is other people's responses for me. Doesn't mean that I'm not calling some experiences in. I've done a good job of that. I've had every bad girlfriend you can imagine because I thought I wasn't enough, right? But I was able to release my adopted family over the last few years, and it came after really understanding that not only were they carrying traumas, but that the resources weren't there for them. And maybe they were there, but they didn't turn to them, but that's not part of the culture that they grew up in. Right? We're in this country where you're quiet. You don't share what's going on in your family. You don't share what's going on for yourself because people use that against you and it can be used against you. So being able to meet people with compassion. I've spent the last 4.5 years telling people that I love Donald Trump because it's true. I can love him and have compassion with him. I don't have to like him. I don't have to agree with him. I don't have to agree with his policies, but I know that he is an angry 6-year-old, 9-year-old who hasn't done the work, so that I will not carry any seeds of hate for him or any other white supremacist. It's not my place. That's not what I'm going to do. What I'm going to do is I might turn away, walk away, but what I want to do is help build up those people, and particularly like you two, Patricia and Santa. How do I support you and so many other activists in knowing that you're enough, that you're worthy, and that we need you, that you're beautiful, right? That's where I do with my anger. So. And what was the other part of it was like, that's why do you still bother? That's why I bother, because we've been taught that we weren't loved and we've been taught that we weren't worthy, and that's true for everybody in some way in this space. So that's my work. That's my work, is to be as much love as I can and mirror it back. Patricia, the last question is yours.
Patricia, you get to ask the last question.
That's right.
Unless you want to punt it, you're allowed. But Lev, I just want to say, like, what you shared is just so beautiful. And it sounds so liberating. And it also sounds like so much work to say, I'm not going to internalize this. I am going to reflect love back, even in the midst of knowing that's not what's being reflected at me. I'm constantly going to live on this higher plane, or I'm going to work really hard to be there. And in the midst of all of that, I still have to pay attention to my safety.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for all of that to be going on all the time.
And it's imperfect.
Yeah.
So sometimes I have to pull myself back from that thought.
Yeah.
It's not like I don't have it. I've watched all the movies. So I know, right? You know, like our imaginations have been colonized. Yeah. Our entertainment is violent. Yeah. So it's not like I don't have that, but the intention, like you said.
Yeah.
If we can live with the intention, like, and then do the work, as my dear friend who's on here, Laura Callan, and I and her now husband once had a conversation about how intention just wasn't enough.
Wow. Amen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. I can ask the third question. And I just want to say, Lev, you come from a long line of some really fierce warriors. That's how you do it. Mm-hmm. That's what I believe.
Thank you.
That's what I believe. So the third question is, we're going to figure it all out right here, right now, y'all. Like it's, so what do we do now?
Lev, do you want to go first, since you went last? Or
no, I can go in the middle.
You want to go in the middle? I'll jump in then. I remember and I'm talking about like back after Michael Brown was murdered, when folks were in the streets about that. There was a meme that was circulating, and it said, so how are we going to transform our systems now? And white people said, through love. And Black people said, through this policy, through this policy, through this policy, through this policy. And the white people are like, love. And so I want to say, in this moment, our family's under attack. Like all of us, our family's under attack. And we absolutely need to change hearts and minds. We absolutely need to change culture. And gosh darn it, we need some good policies. And for those policies to come from a deep spirituality of love is amazing and necessary. And it's got to be policies. So I want to say, like, what do we do now is we pay attention to why people are killing people and do something about that. We pay attention to what's getting taught in our classrooms that means that people don't realize there have been hundreds of years of anti-Asian sentiment in this country and do something about that. We pay attention to the fact that we are trained to be afraid of Black male bodies, and we do something about that. And there are maybe not government legislation all the time, although I think we should have some of that. And we should rematriate indigenous land. There are a million things we can be doing policy-wise that can create some healing, that can create some equity, that can create some trust. And that's how policy is actually related to relationship. For me, people are like, I don't understand why you don't trust me. And I'm like, if you'll forgive me for quoting James Baldwin, because I've seen what you've done. And so if we want real right relationship, we're going to have to build out some policies that are grounded in the thriving and well-being of people who have been pushed to the margins. And that said, I do also think there is immediate, like, how we show up for, y'all heard me say, my sister Venmo'd me money so I could order brunch on Monday. I will take that as a word of healing. So there are things we can do in the individual as well. It's just not a substitute for policies. And I do think that the ways that we create joy matter. You know, when I'm doing an anti-racism training, I usually stick in a song and tell everybody to turn their cameras off so we can have a little dance break, right? And I think love in all of its forms and getting the love in all of its forms and giving the love in all of its forms is also really critical. And find you a cute girlfriend. I just found me one. So that's part of the healing work as well. So I want to invite y'all to consider all of those things. Love matters, and love matters right now when it's grounded in policy. I'm going to kick it over to Lev, and then Patricia gets the last word before Q&A.
Yes. I know I've been playing with the idea of dating. It's been a while. I'm almost at, you know how like the breakup, the 9 year takes like 4.5 years to get over, and do the work. I'm actually a pretty happy single. Get rid of the joy.
Those are the only people who should be in a relationship, or people who are happy single, Lev. So you're good.
I don't always choose those. Yeah, I need to. I would like that. It's on my list. Get rid of do joy. We have someone in office who is intentionally breaking down our postal system, and for the purpose of wrecking our voting system. So we need to send those letters in, make those phone calls. There's no reason why he should still be in the White House. The other part of it is get real. We can't put somebody in the office who we know is owned by corporations, and because of the way they look or their gender or whatever it is, assume that they're going to do good by us. We have to stop devaluing our values. We have to begin honoring our values in our cities, in our counties, and really going for broke. Vote for the person who is actually aligned with you, not for the less of two evils is how we got here. Trump is just the beginning, and we created him. So yes to the policy work. So much I have to say about that. What else was I going to say? We're hearing about the voting system being dismantled. We've been hearing about it. It was really clear when George Bush and Gore got into it. And then after that, George Bush in Ohio, we heard about it. We have to do something. And I know that for us locally, it's not as bad if you're here. It's more about who we're voting into place, but how can we support people in other cities and counties and states in assuring that they are, that they can vote locally, figure that out. sharing stories wherever you can. So in my workshops as well, there's at least 2 breakouts minimum, and the surprise and the joy that people get about connecting to their coworkers. Do it in your communities. Make sure you have a check-in time with people. Get to, my most common question is, what is on your heart today? And make space, even if it's 2 minutes, for people to share what's going on to help build a bigger community. And yes to dance parties. Oh, yes. And up your self-compassion practice. Up it, up it, up it. Consider yourself, consider that little baby who just fell and got up and fell and got up and fell and got up and tried to write their name and started all over and tried to write their name and started over. Commit to failing forward. Commit to being love and compassion yourself, not worshiping it, not honoring it, being it. So that's my last. That sounded kind of speechy, right? That's because I'm sleepy. Sorry. Thank you.
I love it. Thank you, both of you. Very fitting that my anarchist self would go last. Voting, schmoting policies. Yeah, good. But we've been trying that experiment for quite a while. I say we try some other form. I read this quote during my dad's eulogy a few weeks ago. In 1994, John Trudell gave a interview, and the interviewer asked him, "What is the struggle about for you?" He chuckled a little bit, and then he said, "Well, in general, it's like to do more good than bad while I'm here, or at least keep it even, but not to damage the world by my presence." And there was something that really struck me when I listened to that interview. And I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with John Trudell. I can listen to him all day. And there's a lot of damage that has happened before I was born and that is currently happening. And so I think for me, we need there is an urgency that we must find balance within ourselves. As we were talking about, we got to do the work. It is imperative that we do the work because our disconnection is what's driving all the dis-ease currently right now. It's so much and too much. That's what people are like, "Oh, how are you doing?" And I'm like, well, it's been a lot. It's too much and so much, right? And so there is a disconnection and there is an imbalance, and that's part of decolonization, right? And so the reminder that we are power, and I'm not, I do not believe that anyone. I've been calling the new president Papa Joe because on the Spanish news they were like, "Oh, he's gonna pass all this stuff on immigration." I go, unless homie is tearing down all them borders, there is nothing does not exist in my world. Okay, that short of that and the abolition of ICE. And all of that, anyone that is caged up, that for me, that needs to just go, just period. And so I think for me, the importance of kinship and the disconnection that we, of I'm doing for me because I love you. I don't know you, but the importance of that and how that has been totally broken because of the kind of system that we're under. And I think part of what needs to happen is that people just need to accept that we live in a country that's imperialist and that has been devastating devastating the lands across the globe, including the lands here. And so I think for me, that is the most crucial thing, to deal with the truth of this moment. Just like you said, Lev, we have to be real. And that is the most important thing, is we must be, and so what are we going to do? So we know this, and we're learning and we're unlearning, right? And we're remembering, but so what do we do from here? We need to come in better alignment with ourselves. We need to be better to ourselves, and that starts within ourselves, right? And there's a lot of people that just do not have the space. There is so much suffering, and there is so much dismantling of colonization that is like, so like it's like fumes that we've inhaled, right? And for many generations. And so the importance of being able to sit with ourselves and to really look at our surroundings. And I agree with you, Lev, that it's not that bad here, but the sheriffs in both Cocoa County and in Alameda County are, excuse my language, but a lot of you probably don't speak Spanish, caca. That means crap. They are extremely racist, and they are feeding the pipeline between the jails and the detention centers. And a whole host of other things that I know that they do that is just not okay. And so I think
I have a question.
Yes.
You said they're racist. Do they say the nigger word?
What? I'm sorry.
I said,
Did you get rid of that person yet, Will?
You said they're racist. Do they say the nigger word?
That's your bomber, Will.
I can't tell who it is. Can you tell who it is?
No, because they stopped talking. Yeah.
Oh.
I don't like the nigger word.
Oh, there it is, Lisa. Lisa, or let's see. Their name keeps changing from Lisa Laura to Amy. Right now, it's not right now, it's the N word. I got them on Carrie. They just keep changing their name. Homo.
They just left.
Sorry, everybody. Unfortunately, when we put, the Zoom out, sometimes people who are not well get in.
Shut up, nigga.
Yeah, there he is. He's still here. If you could please give me some hosting. I see him. Right now it's Bertha Peters.
Can you stop stalking his name, you fucking
Now
nigger?
it's John. It's
Holy
Janice.
shit. Shut
There's
the
a few
fuck
people.
up.
Will, can you give
Stop
me
looking
shared
at the
hosting?
screen.
Yeah. Sorry, everyone.
Nobody's changing their name, you
That's
fucking
okay.
stupid cunt. Don't fucking mute me. You don't have any rights to mute me, you stupid bitch. Don't fucking...
Great, thank you.
Look at you. Shut up.
There we go. That's John Whitaker.
Shut the fuck up.
That's John Whitaker. John Whitaker is removed. And I believe Bill Cunningham.
No, Bill is ours. Bill
Okay.
belongs to us.
Actually, if you belong to us, it'd be great if you put your screen on, because that would help us.
Yes, that would be helpful.
Thank you, Katie. So yes, we know there are people who are not well, and they show up in these spaces. Great.
I think we got them. And I'm not letting anyone else back in. So I think you're good.
Liv, thanks for stepping in. Are you all right?
Yeah, thank you. I'll I'll take care of it with some exercise later. So I'm not convinced that they're gone, but it's okay. We're going to go on anyway, and then we will dismiss them if we find them. So everybody actually take a breath, like touch your heart if you need to, just knowing that that's painful. I know if it's painful for me, it's painful for many of you as well. So how beautiful is it that you're all doing this work, right? So somebody just came in and talked about why. Someone just gave us a perfect example of what, many of us are living with all the time. We don't get to see it. There's no need to hate, right? We don't have to hate this person. They're suffering. Patricia, I think you were talking, so we can please continue telling us about your radical ways.
Lev, are you just enjoying the fact that we're the moderates in the conversation for once?
Yeah, I have my edges. Are you sure that Bill Cunning, because he's the one who just said something?
It looks like there are two Bill Cunninghams. Oh, and they just changed their name to Andy.
Yeah, great, excellent,
So,
goodbye.
Yeah.
No, I didn't say
and
anything.
something else.
Bill Cunningham is a member of Hillcrest. He's with us. Unless there's
Actually,
someone else using the same name.
I just removed that person. It
Okay,
wasn't him.
And there's the real Bill. I can see him. Okay.
Okay, we'll leave Joshua out. Somebody's trying to get in. I'm really sorry to disturb. Thank you, Zila. I'm really sorry this is disturbing us. But this is the practice right now, right?
Yep.
This is the practice. This is live. This is the part where if you are angry, you know what? It's okay. It's okay. We just don't let it consume the work that's trying to be done here.
Yeah.
Lev, thank you for handling that with such grace.
Yes.
Thank you.
Told you your ancestors, you and your ancestors handle that like some warriors. I'll just close out by saying that as I'm invoking warriors, warriors are here, and they've existed in all of, from all the people we come from, and warriors get ready to do battle in whatever shape or form that takes, right? And they get ready by being in ceremony, being in prayer, by eating well, by connecting to the land, by asking for strength. And they go out and do what they need to do. And hopefully they come back. And if they don't, that's okay. They join the Star Nation. And then they come back and they do it all over again, right? They find love, they get together with folks, they create families, different kinships, right? Different connections to the humans and the non-humans. And so I think for me, that's the important, is to remind ourselves that we're all warriors and that some of us are damaged, and confused, and that's okay. Because we're enough, right? And we are power, and the light is all around us. The light is running through us. We are the light, and so from the light in me to my ancestor, from the light in me and my ancestors to the light in you and all of your ancestors, we will continue the struggle, right? Because we have to. It is urgent. Our planet is relying on us, and the next 7 generations are relying on us. So let's continue to do the work.
Thank you.
Let's all take a big deep breath. This work matters. If it didn't matter, they wouldn't take the time to try and tell us that it didn't. So we're here in solidarity. Breathe in some love. Let it out with a little bit of noise. Let some of that stress go. You might need to stand up and shake some of this out of your body if it's gotten stuck there, and that's okay. Another big deep breath in. And breathing it out together with a little noise. So you may have seen in the chat room that I've encouraged us to share some words of gratitude before we just jump into questions. And I have a word of gratitude for all three of our panelists tonight. Wow, you took us to a really deep place. Lev, thanks for reminding us that our spiritual practices matter. And Patricia, thank you for that as well, that it was getting back to ceremonies that made the difference for you. That our communities matter. And Reverend Shonda, thank you for a reminder that sometimes we aren't able to have the conversations with loved ones until they're ready for them, even fathers in their 70s. So deep, so powerful. For us to be liberated means that all of our peoples can be liberated. And so I want to give our panelists one more opportunity to maybe even say some words of thanks to each other. And then we'll open it up one person at a time, just in case our friend was around still. So we'll do it with permission. So you can use, under the reactions, you can raise your hand like this. The reaction button is on the bottom next to the, by the shared screen. And so if you do have a question, or if you want to share some words of gratitude once our panelists have had a chance to do so, we encourage you to do so. But Lev, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, I'll start by saying that we see your hand, Edith. And so you're going by Edith in the tan jacket. We saw your hand. You can probably go first. What am I saying?
Just sharing some words of gratitude for the last hour.
So what an honor to, I have never met Patricia before, and Sandhya and I haven't shared this kind of space before. So what an honor to be with two bright lights, as Patricia was saying, on this path to freedom. We're walking a path to love and freedom, and grateful for that, grateful to share that, to have shared our experiences with each other. And Will, thank you for creating this space, and I'm grateful for everyone who took time out to be here.
Amen. Sister Patricia?
Yeah, I was trying to get some breakfast this morning, and I got a text from Shonda, and she's like, "Hey, we need some help. Are you interested?" And I was like, "Call me." And Shonda never calls me immediately, but she sure called me immediately this morning, and let me know. And I am extremely honored and humbled to take a little space, obviously not replace Karina and all her magic, but to be able to give her the grieving room that obviously she needs, and to be able to be in this space with Shonda and Lev. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful beings. Shonda and I have been sisters for, I'm sure, many lifetimes before this. And Lev, there's, as you started to speak, I knew there was something really amazing and fierce about you, and the way you dealt with all of that. It's like your armor came on and it was like, nope, we got this, we got each other's back. And so thank you. Thank you for being you and for existing.
That's right. And it's so important for us to recognize our trans siblings, especially as we come up on Trans Day of Visibility. We are joining the Rainbow Community Center in co-sponsoring the Transgender Day of Visibility next Wednesday, the 31st at 7:30 p.m. online. So take a look for that event as well. And Reverend Shonda.
I'm just super grateful to be in space with folks whose ancestors are clearly very proud of you. And I'm also grateful, Will, you kind of trusted us to create something that was going to be very different from a traditional, here's a panel on racial justice. And I don't know if it was what folks were expecting, but I'm grateful for y'all sticking it out regardless of what your expectations were. And it may not have been a traditional panel discussion, but my soul felt full by the end, and I'm grateful for that.
Amen. Well, we try to learn and we try to get out of the way as we learn how to do so. So thank you for that. So Edith, are you there?
I am. And this is my daughter's computer, Edith. I'm Bob.
Hey, Bob.
I wanted to go back to the person who broke in with all of those hateful terms. And I have a fairly strong vocabulary myself. I recognized all those, and in my youth, I used a lot of them. But the thing that struck me, and I feel it now, can you feel the pain of that person? The isolation, the anger, the rejection, the feeling of being left out, and how that has driven that person? And that's exactly what we're talking about today. Trauma. What do you do with that trauma? I wish there were a way I could reach that person and feel like maybe I could help a little. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, they must be hurting, and they must be very fearful that their so-called supremacy is going away. Others. Yes, Carol Richardson. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Thank you. So I was really struck by a number of things that each one said, Sonia, Shonda, and Lev and Patricia. But one of the things that I'd like to pull out is that idea of policy as relationship, never having encountered that connection before. I mean, similar ideas, but not said that way. And I'm just wondering if we could have some time to discuss that idea, if anyone would like second that, if we could vote on it, whatever procedure you would use on Zoom. I would love to hear how that struck other people, if other people have heard that before. Because when we think about policy, I spend most of my time thinking, well, we live in a practical oligarchy. What's the point? So Patricia, I can understand from that perspective your anarchist sentiment. But what if we start having a much larger dialogue about, oh dear God, policy is about relationship. And what kind of relationships are we living with each other? I would love that.
Do any of our panelists want to go deeper on that first? And Zula seconded that. So you're not alone, Carol.
I'd love to hear from other folks in the room. And what I will say is there's a song from the Poor People's Campaign that goes, "Somebody's hurting my brother and it's gone on far too long and we won't be silent anymore." What if that were the foundation of the way we did policy, right? Yeah.
I want to add, like, that's what New Zealand did. They created that we're all shutting down for each other, and then everybody went along with it, so that they were at a ballpark in July. That's what universal healthcare is. Something that people with access to Medicare haven't done the research to really understand, because they're the ones who, and I'm saying they because I've had Medicare, but I mean medical, insurance, but I've still see that it's possible for us all to have it. We have to do our own homework. So that is policy in relationship. Yeah. Yeah. And so much more. Thank you for that phrase, Sanja. I've never heard of it before. Love it.
Love, thank you for bringing out healthcare. I'm going to self-reveal a little bit, which feels uncomfortable in this setting, since I don't know most of the people here. And Sanja, you and I have met once, but I don't know if you recall. I moved to California to work on a PhD so that I could be in person with students, only to have everything, of course, shut down and go online. But while working on a PhD, I have Medi-Cal. And I used to have health insurance. So this has been an incredible eye-opening experience, which has to do with economics. But given that I go to La Clinica, the ties of racism are obviously inherent. When I could get through on the phone, when I've had what I believe has been long-haul COVID, but never got a positive test, there were many times I could not get through on the phone. Today, I waited for 17 calls ahead of me. And, it would take a while till like next week to get scheduled for a COVID test, just because it looks like I need one right now for work. It's horrifying to me that there is this huge discrepancy in quality of care. And I understand La Clinica is full of these beautiful souls who are doing their utmost, but it's underfunded. And so tying that idea of policy and relationship, I mean, I literally said to this kind person on the other end of the phone, it's like these people don't matter. And I'm now one of them, and none of us matter. So this has been an incredible learning experience for me. Yeah, I don't know if I need to tie it to racism more than that, but I'm sure you can fill in the blanks on that.
Some of I dated this fifth grade teacher for a while, and what she taught her kids was how to learn. That was the most important part of her teaching, how to learn. If we can get curious about what we don't know, so much more is possible. So I want to, if I know I've said a lot of things, but if there's anything you walk away with, why are people complaining about, why are people showing up at our borders? It has everything to do with us and our impact on the environment, not to mention the wars. Why are people needing healthcare? Why wouldn't dental be part of a freer system? So just getting into the curious place of, why are people marching in the streets? And, I watch the news, if you watch the news 70s, 80s, Black men are violent. They are constantly committing crimes. I hear it in the news. So why is that? Right? Just getting curious. Patricia was mentioning, touched on, like, it's not so much that the violence is happening, it's the cause of the violence, right? I mean, they both matter, but why are people robbing, stealing, killing, Because they're hungry. Where is Patricia?
She turned her video off, but she's still here
okay.
with us.
Got it. There, I see her.
Yeah, looking at all the intersectionalities is the important piece here, isn't it? That's right. Patricia, did you want to go? She's back.
No, I will let other people share. I was changing rooms because my battery's dying on my phone, so I had to charge it.
What else did you notice? What else were you grateful for, Laura?
Hi. What a joy. Hey, Lev. What a joy it's been to listen to all three of you, brilliant, beautiful people. And I wanted to ask a question about something that each of you spoke about in different ways, you know, the need for radical change, for complete transformation, and instead of settling or just reforming. And when that comes up, you know, in conversation, there's so much fear, right? About either fear of what that might mean, or inability or not yet having imagined what that might look like. And I'm just would love to hear, you know, thoughts on how can we open ourselves up to and help other people open up to possibilities of radical change. Because it feels like it requires a different kind of move somehow, but I don't know what that is.
Laura always comes with the hard questions.
So I don't know if, Lev, do you have a thought right now?
No, you go first.
All right. So I love this question because I think it's what I would call theological imagination. The faith communities, the one thing we have to offer that no one else does in quite the same way is we can imagine a world in which everyone is getting their needs met and everybody's gifts are being honored, and where we have full thriving relationship with the land and all of the creatures therein. The tyranny of realism stops us from doing the work that our creator or the universe is calling us into. And so I think that this is why it's so great to have this conversation among spiritually grounded people, because so at the Oakland Peace Center, we hosted an event that was co-sponsored with Faith Alliance for a Moral Economy, and it was on abolition for a moral economy. And there was a prison abolitionist there, and there were a lot of folks there who were prison chaplains and people who had been involved in prison reform. And they were like, we see what you're saying, we love the vision you're casting, but can that really happen? And he said, think of the last prison reform campaign you were involved in. Did it pass? And 90% of the people were like, nah. And he's like, so why are you putting so much energy into something that isn't going to pass and isn't creating liberation for the people you care about? If you're going to fail anyhow, you might as well fail big. And I've never forgotten that, because it reminds me of the sacred texts that cast these visions that are impossible except with the divine in place, and with all of us actually believing that the divine can do things, we can actually achieve that. And so I find myself thinking about that moment a lot, because in the midst of and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying y'all needs to be in support of the defund police campaign, but when my friends would come to me and say, your people keep saying defund the police, and it's not that I disagree with the basic premises of what you're advocating, it's just not realistic. I was able to pause and say, See, that's what y'all told me about Black Lives Matter 6 years ago. And because we said that Black Lives Matter for 6 years, now that's treated as a given among our allies, me being one of the allies. And now we're on to the next radical thing, because 6 years from now, you're going to be like, yeah, so this other thing you're casting a vision for, where everybody has dental care, that's just never going to happen. And I'll be able to say, yeah, that's what you said about defund police. So keep casting the big visions, because the little ones aren't gaining us enough to save the lives. And the God or gods or universe that we are in alignment with want something bigger. And all of our sacred texts tell us that. And that's what's so exciting about getting to do this work with y'all. So that's me. I don't know what Lev and Patricia have to say. That's just I get really excited about that question.
You want to go first, Patricia? Thank you. I think I had an adrenaline drop, so I couldn't respond. And absolutely. So we're always manifesting. It's important for us to. Can be a challenging term for a lot of people, and I don't believe that we manifest everything. And I believe that we're always manifesting. So what do you want to manifest? Is something that we have to be committed to, sort of what Sanja was saying. And one of the ways that I talk about it, especially with young people, is that somebody said, I'm going to take this glass and I'm going to help people see. And people were like, what the hell? You're crazy. People aren't going to be able to see through glass. We have glasses. Somebody said, I'm going to fly. I'm going to be up there like a bird, and people, right? The Wright brothers. Nobody believed them. MLK had a lot of people telling him to slow down. He was going too fast. None of us imagined that we'd be sitting right here, right now, being able to look at all these people that we don't know in all these different places. So the practice is, at least for me, is to align with spirit. I don't use the term God, but higher power, goddess, universe, is for me to align with the natures. Patricia keeps talking about all this power that we have, this power that we lost to having our stories blocked, right? By having our histories blocked, by not knowing who we are. And so we can do anything. We can go to the moon. We can, we've supported so many people through life experiences that they couldn't help get through before. People have been saved from strokes and heart attacks, right? Not everybody, but it's, so want it. Know that you want it. Commit to the practice of doing whatever it is that you do to get there in community. And we can make it happen. That's where I'm at. I'm still a little scattered, so hopefully that answered the question. When you like have this high and then you're like, oh, well, hangover happening.
So we're going to have to say goodbye to Reverend Shonda soon because she's got another meeting, but I'm
not letting anybody in.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm sorry if we lost you, Andy, but it's too hard to welcome people back in. Patricia, would you like to give us the last word before we end tonight?
I appreciate all of you here. And I just want to, thank you for your time and your energy for being here. And thank you for that question. I will just very briefly say, I think that something that I learned from one of my spiritual brothers is that he was sharing how his goal is to be a simple person. We don't need a lot, right? To live simple lives. And he was sharing, he was sharing this, and then I realized, I was like, yeah, but there's a lot of people who don't actually have the most essential things. And he said, well, that's our role. to be in kinship with people is that we need to help each other out, because the more we help people, then those people will have faith again in humanity, and then they will help other people. And so the continuation of that, and that's why we're all here, right? That's why we are existing in this moment, because somebody helped your ancestors, and here we are, right? This many moments later, and the importance of that, of being, of staying connected. And that is the most crucial thing, and helping each other out in our moments, and being okay with asking for help, and continuing that, pushing that forward. Do you want me to, are we closing out? We're closing out. This is the final word. Should I just sing a little song real quick and then we're done?
Please, lead us on. Teach us a way to pray with you.
So there is a song that I sing. It's in the Nahuatl language. The Nahuatl people are kind of people from central part of Mexico, generically called they're Mexica, but they're genetically called Aztec folks. But this is a song that I like to sing. It's papalo is the Nahuatl word for butterfly. So the song is about the butterfly and the transformation that butterflies do and create. And so I'm gonna sing it a couple of times. I normally sing it 4 times, but it's a very short song. So it goes, we, papalo, we, papalo, yolo, yolo, papalo, papalo, we, papalo, we, papalo, yolo, yolo, papalo, papalo, ikloke, nawake, ikloke, nawake, yolo, yolo, papalo, papalo, ikloke, nawake, ikloke, nawake, yolo, yolo, papalo, papalo. To everyone's continued transformation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And as we depart, I just want to share just a couple of our announcements that tomorrow at noon is our prayer vigil with the AAPI community, and you can go to our events page to find that. And on the 31st, we're co-sponsoring Transgender Day of Visibility program in the evening. It'll also be on YouTube, and there's information on that on our events page as well. And let's thank our presenters again tonight. Thanks so much. Be blessed. Be the blessing that you seek in the world. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Patricia. So good to meet you. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Really appreciate your presence and all of your sharing. Reverend Shonda, Lev, once again, you hit it out of the park, brother.
Thanks.
The work is compassion. That's the hardest work. The biggest, longest journey in the universe is from this brain of mine to that heart of mine. And it's the hardest work that we have to do, isn't it? Thanks again.
Are we going to hang out a little bit after?
We can now. The recording's off, and if there are folks that want to share a little bit more with the last 20 of us that are on here, you're free to share a little bit more and unmute yourself. Yeah. Thanks everyone for being here. Members of our elected council, even. Good to see you, Zila.
Yes, thank you.
Catherine. Fred. This is the work, isn't it?
Yeah. Can I just, I'd like to acknowledge something. I think I something. This is Zula.
Hi, Zula.
Something that
Hi,
I'm
Zula.
I'm hi that I am